Hey super friends, my name is Neil and welcome to episode 65 of the Get Your Comic Con podcast. We're here fortnightly-ish to bring you a slice of film, TV and pop culture goodness from our studio direct to your speakers. I am of course joined by my very own boy wonder Martin. Say hello Martin.
Hello Martin.
I have to apologise because we should have had a podcast out last week. We had to delay by a week. Why did we have to delay by a week?
You're doing very well.
I got COVID. Yeah, I have an actual confirmed case of COVID-19, which thankfully I'm now kind of getting over. You, however, despite the fact that we live together, haven't even managed to catch it.
No.
He says so flippantly after taking 2 tests that have proven negative. So yeah, thankfully I'm feeling much better. If anybody saw the video I put on Twitter earlier in the week apologising for the fact we hadn't done a podcast, I didn't have much of a voice. Thankfully, I have a bit more of a voice now, so we are back. We're going to be going through a few news headlines today. Then we have a couple of TV series to review, and we're also going to talk a little bit about a certain cinematic trilogy, which has a new movie coming out just a little later this month. So let's get down to it. Let's get on with the news. For those living in the UK, you will have woken up this morning to a brand new teaser for the upcoming Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. That is the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This film is set to release in cinemas in October 2022 and is now confirmed to be the first part in a 2-part storyline, with the second part of Across the Spider-Verse releasing in 2023. So it's 7th of October 2022 for part 1. The film will once again star Shamik Moore as Miles Morales. Haley Steinfeld returns as Gwen Stacy. This film will also see the debut of Issa Rae as Jessica Drew, otherwise known as Spider-Woman, and Oscar Isaac will be returning as Miguel O'Hara, otherwise known as Spider-Man 2099. There are also rumours that Jake Johnson will be returning as Peter B. Parker from the first movie. So I'm intrigued by your thoughts on this, Boy Wonder. I sat you down to watch this preview a little earlier today. You weren't the hugest fan of the first film in this burgeoning animated franchise. So what did you think of your first look at Across the Spider-Verse?
It looked alright.
I think you thought the animation was just a bit too much for you the first time around, didn't you?
It gave me a bit of a headache. I made me feel a bit sick watching it.
It's heavily stylised and it looks like they're doing something slightly different this time around. Both of the directors, so that's Christopher Miller and Phil Lord, have done an interview with Entertainment Weekly where they've talked about the fact that this film will go, as the title suggests, across the Spider-Verse rather than the Spider-Men and women coming to Miles in his Earth. And each of the Earths is going to have a different kind of art style, which you get a little flavour of in this trailer here. So there's going to be a lot more going on animation-wise this time.
Oh, I have to have an antiemetic.
Would you like to explain what that is to anybody that's not well informed?
Or a travel pastel or something. Makes me feel a bit queasy.
Help you feel a little less sick. We don't know very much about the storyline in this film, other than what we see in the trailer, which looks like Miles is going to be going on a bit of a journey across the Spider-Verse. No idea of who villains are, no idea of who else might turn up. Again, in the same Entertainment Weekly article, Lord and Miller said that he'll be teaming up with friends old and new, so I guess we can expect to see a lot of new characters showing up. We know, as I just said, that Spider-Woman will be turning up, Jessica Drew, played by Issa Rae, but we don't have a chance to see her yet, so no character designs. This trailer is really focused on just Haley Steinfeld as Spider-Gwen and Shamik Moore as Miles Morales. We don't even get to see him suited up for much of the first part of the trailer. So they're not giving very much away, and we obviously have 10 months wait to see this film, so I would imagine there'll be plenty more to come in the meantime. But it's just a strong entry into the Spider-Verse, which is coming back. This is a lot of people's favourite Spider-Man movie, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do a second time around. And nice to know that we've got a third film on the way as well, so they're really investing in this animated universe. I really enjoyed the first film, so I'm really excited to see more from it. I wasn't sure what to expect from this trailer when they announced that it was going to be released, and then I was pretty bummed out that it was going to be released at 1:30 in the morning. But guess what? I woke up at 1:30 in the morning, so I actually saw it in the middle of the night and retweeted it. I must have convinced my brain that it was an important enough event that I needed to be awake at the time. So excited for more from Spider-Verse 2. Next up, we also have a brand new trailer for HBO Max's Peacemaker, starring John Cena. We now know that the series is going to debut on January 13th in the US. We still don't have confirmed news as to where fans outside of territories where HBO Max is available will be able to see this. It's highly likely it will come to Now and Sky here in the UK, but unconfirmed for now, so watch this space. But brand new trailer. What did you think, Boy Wonder?
It was alright. It looks a bit nuts. Looks everything that Suicide Squad looked like, but in a serial TV format.
Yeah? Do you feel like you've got a better idea about what's going on now that you've seen this? They're calling this the official trailer, so this has kind of got a bit more story to it and stuff. It gives away a bit more.
Potentially.
I feel like you said that as if to say, I can't remember.
No, I do. I mean, it gives some away. It doesn't give it all away, though, does it?
Oh, no, I mean, I didn't mean in this completely lays all the cards on the table and we know exactly what's going on, but it gives you a flavour of the fact that he's wrestling with his conscience maybe a little bit, and some of the actions of Suicide Squad. It's obviously going to focus quite heavily on his relationship with his dad, played by Robert Patrick, and it seems there's quite a comedy kind of duo dynamic going on between Peacemaker and Vigilante.
The bird.
And Eagerly, yes. Who looks really well done in CGI. Because I highly doubt that was a real bird they got to fly into the car.
Well, you never know. I mean, they can be very well trained these days.
That's true. They could have trained one, but something tells me maybe not in this instance. Surely. We've covered off this show a few times on here, but just to rattle off in case you didn't know, John Cena returns as Peacemaker. As I just mentioned, Robert Patrick plays his father, Augie Smith. You've got Christopher Heredal as Captain Locke, Freddie Stromer as Adrian Chase, who's also known as Vigilante. Jennifer Holland and Steve Agee both return as Amanda Waller's lackeys from the Suicide Squad. So Jennifer Holland plays Amelia Harcourt, who obviously has quite a strong history in the comics for anybody that knows those. And Steve Agee plays John Economos. You've got Danielle Brooks, who joins the cast as Leota Adebayo, Chidiwoki Awuji as Clemson Mern, Nutley as Judo Master, Lachlan Monroe as Larry Fitzgibbon. I'm reading from IMDb here, so this could be some quite interesting spoilery moments. Annie Chang as Sophie Song, Alison Araya as Amber, Elizabeth Faith Ludlow as Kia. I don't think there's anything major here that we don't already know about. Oh, we've got Philippa Collins as male nurse. Important.
Not male nurse.
Is that a hero that we don't know about?
It could be. Not all heroes wear capes.
No, not all heroes wear capes.
Or
no.
eagles.
Nice to see a male nurse involved as well, not just a female nurse. I'm sure is that good representation for you?
It could be.
It could be.
Well, I don't know who it is. Who is it?
I don't know. It's just called male nurse.
Well, we don't have to wait and see what the representation is like when we see him.
I think what's really strong about this trailer is the fact that James Gunn has tried to inject even more character into the world of Suicide Squad. So it's not just another caper. Although there is that element to it, it does seem like there's a lot more around Peacemaker's family life and his home life and his backstory and how he got to where he is, even though this is a story set after the Suicide Squad. And it does seem like it's going to have an absolute buttload of humour in it as well. So I'm excited to see where they take it. It's just a shame that we don't know yet when and how UK audiences will be able to see it.
Well, where can we see it?
That's what I was saying. So we don't know exactly where you'll be able to see it outside of HBO Max territory, so like the US and Canada and the few countries where HBO Max has gone. Chances are it will be Now TV or Sky here just because of that deal, that's where most of that content goes here in the UK. But we don't know for definite yet. There's no real discussion about it outside of the US premiere yet, so we'll have to wait and see. I would imagine if they're hoping to sort of simultaneously launch it around the world, we'll hear quite soon because it's January the 13th for it premiering in the US, so it's not that far away. I mean, we are talking only just over a month till it premieres.
It's a matter of days.
A little bit more. We've got to get through Christmas first.
Well, I mean, not that far away.
No, that's right. Well, 20 days till Christmas as we're recording this.
Days.
Anyway, are you excited for Peacemaker?
Well, no, you just worried me now. 20 days till Christmas.
You finished your Christmas shopping?
I've got to write my cards and everything.
As I was saying, if you're excited for Peacemaker, let us know. You can find us on social media at Get Your Comic On Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me at Neil Varg on both platforms, and Martin is at BoyWonder1989. And that leads me into our last news story for this episode, which is the release of a brand new clip from Sony Pictures' Morbius. So this one is also not that far away. It's releasing in cinemas on the 21st of January 2022, so a little bit further away than Peacemaker. I don't need to tell you who this film stars. You've got I'm going to do it anyway. You've got Jared Leto as Dr. Michael Morbius.
I don't need to tell you, but here they are.
Michael Keaton returning as Adrian Toomes. Matt Smith is also in this film, as well as Adria Arjona, Jared Harris, Tyrese Gibson, and I think that's it for the main cast list. Once again, IMDb putting them in a funny order, so apologies if I've missed anyone. And it's directed by Daniel Espinosa. So this isn't a trailer. This is very specifically a clip from a transformation scene where Michael Morbius, who's looking very frail at the beginning of the clip, goes all vampire baity and then transforms back into his human self, only buff.
I mean, what more do you want?
I think the main thing to probably focus about this is, what do you think about this very visual effects heavy sequence? Do you think it's convincing enough? Do you feel like that was a very sickly man that became a vampire? Or do you feel like it was a very sickly man that became a CGI creation?
Well, I've never seen that many sickly men become vampires. I don't have a lot of...
Do you not have a lot of reference
I
material?
don't have a lot of reference material for that, but I mean, what they did, it looked quite good. I mean, as far as I can tell, there was a mixture of practical and computer generated.
I believe you are correct, yes.
So I enjoy the practical more than the computer generation.
Yes?
It looked incredibly gory.
It's very dark. I think my only concern is that...
It's a vampire.
I know that, and obviously sunlight, vampire, etc. But my only concern was that even though it was indoors, it was not very well... Maybe not very well is not the right word. It's very dimly lit, so you don't see a huge amount. And I just worry that much of the film will be like that. I want to see some of the vampire gore.
You might see him. I mean, he was in the bowels of a ship, so...
I know. It's just the fact that even... I mean, that was a lab in the bowels. Okay, he said barrels of a ship. I just feel like, you might have had like a fluorescent light on somewhere rather than a couple of desk lamps.
I mean, I don't know. I've never been in the bowel of a ship, so...
One thing that I did really like was once he does his transformation and breaks out of his cell and is attacking the crew of goons, he knocks one of them to the ground, clearly kills the guy, and then the blood splatter stays on the camera for the rest of that shot till it changes. I don't know if you spotted that.
I did not.
Yeah, so I think he slashes the guy's throat and it sprays up and is in the bottom right of the frame. Across the camera there's a splatter, and then the camera pans up and follows around the room just for a couple of seconds before it moves to a different angle. But before it moves to a different angle, they keep the blood spatter on the screen, as if to try and sort of bring you into it a little bit more, which I quite like, as a little added atmospheric effect.
Very good.
In the second trailer, there was a lot of purple effect around him. Do you remember there was, when he sort of zipped around, there was a lot of purple dust and particle effects that went around him, and there doesn't seem to be much of that here, again, because it's so dark. So it just feels a little devoid of colour, and I was kind of hoping it was going to be quite vibrant.
Well, it's not finished, is it?
I would hope it's finished, given it's due out in sort of 6 weeks.
Well, maybe they're still tweaking.
They might well still be tweaking it down to the line. But it's good to know that you think this is encouraging and that this looks good. As I was worried that you would think it wasn't really worth watching.
It's got a topless Jared Leto. I mean, I'm there.
And that's it for the news this week. Let's go on to the first of our reviews. So from here on out, because I always forget to do this, but from here on out you can expect spoilers for all of the projects that we're talking about. So we've got 2 TV series that we're going to be reviewing, and in betwixt those 2 wonderful series, we're going to have a little retrospective on the Matrix trilogy ahead of the release of The Matrix Resurrections, which is in cinemas on December the 22nd from Warner Brothers Pictures. But first up, I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball that's going to make Boy Wonder here go, ooh. So first up, we are going to be discussing I'm going to guess probably only series of this show that will be produced, because I don't see why they would come back for more, but the currently streaming on Disney Plus Star series Dopesick. There it is. This one is written by Danny Strong, who you might remember as Jonathan from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who has come a long, long way since then, and stars Michael Keaton, Rosario Dawson, Will Poulter, and Caitlin Dever, to name but a few. So, I sat you down. Actually, I started watching the first episode of this without you, because I wasn't sure whether it'd be something you'd be interested in, and within about 5 minutes realised that actually I hadn't anticipated that it was based on a sort of set of real life events, but I suddenly realised that actually I think this was going to be really interesting for you to watch. So I stopped and came back to it with you, and we've just finished watching the series finale. So you can currently stream episodes 1 to 5 on Disney Plus in the UK. In the US, it aired on Hulu and has completed airing. So there's less spoilers if you're in America. There's more spoilers if you're international. And so we have 3 episodes left to air here in the UK, which we have watched, but we won't discuss any plot points from those 3 episodes. So, Boy Wonder, initial thoughts on Dopesick, other than the fact that for the last few weeks you've been telling everyone to watch either Dope Stick, Dope Slick, what else have you called it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just can't get Dope Sick in my mind. It keeps coming out as Dope Stick or Slip or whatever S I can come up with at the time. I'm trying to think of it.
But did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did.
Would you say this is, and this is spoilers for when we do our end of year favourites, but would you say this is your TV series of the year?
I think I probably would.
I thought you might say that, yeah. So tell me why you enjoyed it so much.
It's a very difficult topic for me. Well, it's not really a difficult topic.
This is a topic you talk about every day in your life. So for anybody who's not familiar with Dopesick, this is the story of the pharmaceutical company Purdue, who were the inventors of oxycodone, which is a opioid drug which is used for pain relief and became the central focus of the American and then kind of globally opioid crisis in the early 2000s. And it became investigated and becomes a very famous story about the Sackler family who own Purdue. Sideline, Martin is a pain expert. That is his field of expertise.
Okay. I wouldn't say I was an expert, but
most people would say you're an expert.
Well, it's my area of interest and speciality.
So how do you feel then? Because you obviously knew a lot of this story anyway. How do you feel this was represented in Dopesick?
I think it's a very powerful story. It's a very emotive story, depending on which side of the coin you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I think what they've done is they've done a very good portrayal of the impact that it's had on individual families.
Yeah.
And the level of destruction that these medicines can have.
Yeah.
But it is a very one-sided view of the picture. And there were times where watching the programme I felt slightly uncomfortable because now that the narrative is changing slightly in that this was in America.
Mm-hmm.
The American health system is very,
very different to ours.
To any other health system in the world, especially ours. And the way in which the opioid crisis or pandemic or endemic, whatever you want to call it, has taken hold in the US is not the same way in which it's taken hold here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of work, because my sort of area of interest is cancer pain.
Mm-hmm.
And this program's very much focused on
chronic pain. Yeah.
And there are very different viewpoints in how we try to sort of manage pain and our views of opioids.
Yeah.
And I do worry that sometimes if a cancer patient or somebody who's on these opioids and they're well managed on them and it's all very safe, they'll then hold on to this and it starts to send the slightly wrong message.
Yeah.
And it can undo some of that.
I know what you mean.
Work.
So, for anybody who is less intelligent than Boy Wonder, who needs that explained in sort of layman's terms, this show very much puts the Sackler family, who at the time were the owners of Purdue, in a sort of villainous role. And although their motivations aren't to create a planet full of opioid-addicted... I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like opioid-addicted sort of meth heads. That was not what they set out to do. It very much paints them in that sort of light and therefore makes the drug look as if it doesn't have any benefits, because wherever you see anyone having benefits, it then leads to them being addicted. But that doesn't then touch on the millions of sort of end-of-life patients who are never going to get better, who could take this kind of drug to gently pass away comfortably. Is that the right way to sort of say it?
Oh, I don't know. So just sort of it's having good pain management.
Yeah, it doesn't show that there are situations where it can be used beneficially rather than it leading to what this show often shows that it leads to, which is heroin addiction and overdose.
Yes, I mean, I think there were a couple of really good points in the show that they sort of picked on up a little bit, but they didn't focus on it because, again, it wouldn't have made good TV, and it would probably have made the power behind the messages maybe a little bit less. So there was a couple of moments when they're like, oh, actually the addicts aren't really using oxycodone because it's too expensive, so they then go to heroin or they go to meth, which is exactly what happened. So when the oxycodone was rife, it was very expensive, got harder to get a hold of, and then the meth dealers came in, and then that's when the whole town sort of fell apart in a way. And there's a really interesting Louis Theroux documentary that goes into a small American town where that thing happened. The oxycodone wave hit, and then the meth wave hit.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a whole other issue. So, but it was really interesting watching you watch it and see your sort of journey through it and some of the things you were saying to me. It's like, whoa, okay.
Well, because I fell into that trap of, well, this is evil.
Yeah. And you were saying to me, oh, I hope you don't prescribe oxycodone. I'm thinking, oh, God.
You better not.
I've prescribed lots of oxycodone.
So you get to see it from the point of view of quite a few different characters, and I think the way that they approach the cast in this is really brilliant. So it's difficult to I guess Michael Keaton is probably the biggest name in it, and he is a small town general practitioner who is approached by pharmaceutical reps from the company, and he's asked about what pain medications he prescribes to his patients, and is brought in from the point of view of a doctor who begins to prescribe it. You've then got Peter Sarsgaard, who plays Rick Mountcastle, who is a kind of US attorney who is on the periphery of this and is brought in to help try and investigate whether the pharmaceutical company is doing the right thing in the way they're promoting it. Then you have Michael Stuhlbarg as Richard Sackler, who is the president of Purdue and the inventor of the drug. So you see his point of view on the situation. And then you've also got Will Poulter, who plays Billy Cutler, who is one of the drug reps who is traveling around these small American towns trying to convince the doctors to prescribe the drug. And then not to forget Rosario Dawson, who is she plays Bridget Meyer, who is another agent from another part of the US kind of system.
DEO.
Who DEO.
Oh, DEA, sorry. She's not an alien catcher.
She doesn't catch aliens in Supergirl, who is also investigating them. And lastly, you've got Betsy Mallon, played by Caitlin Dever, who is a mine worker who is injured and becomes a patient who is prescribed Oxy. So there are a lot of different perspectives. So I do think that the fact that they brought in multiple perspectives to the story helped to balance it out a bit. But you could tell that the overall opinion of the production team was, this drug bad, these people were bad that were shipping this drug out to the world. So I think they tried to keep it balanced, but I don't feel like they entirely kept it balanced, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, but then it's a very unbalanced story because to a degree Purdue were really horrible in sort of their sales tactics, the way they marketed the drug, the way they pushed the drug, and the way they told their sales rep to push the drug was really quite horrific.
Yeah.
To the point where that would never happen because, you'd be lucky if a pharma rep would be even willing to speak to you anymore because the fear of anything like that happening again is so high.
Yeah. So this is what you were explaining to me, that now everyone is too scared to prescribe that kind of drug.
So if you look at America in particular, so I mean, I was at a conference last year and there was a very eminent cancer pain nurse there, and she was sort of explaining her side of the story, in that, cancer patients with complex pain and at the end of their life, they really struggle to get these prescriptions even filled because most pharmacies won't even stock them anymore. And that's all opioids, not just oxycodone. So
yeah,
you sort of you got the flip side where this drug was bad. Maybe it was probably marketed the wrong way. It was pushed the wrong way. It was given to the wrong patients. But now we're at the flip side where people who really need it and would really benefit from it can't get anywhere near the drug.
Yeah.
Because there's such a high level of fear and anxiety around it, which is understandable.
Yes. So how do you feel about the structure of this show? So if you've watched any episodes of this so far, and this is not a spoiler, you will know that this show is structured very, very complexly. It jumps from towards the end of the season up to this year, all the way back to the 60s, the noughties, the 90s. It jumps around, and there is a wonderful on-screen kind of visualization to tell you when the year changes. So it's not necessarily difficult to keep up with what year you're in, but sometimes you could find it difficult to remember where you are in the overall narrative of the show, in which year you're in. So how did you feel about the kind of the complex way that they presented the story?
I think it was an interesting way to do it, but it was a case of if you blinked, you could have missed a jump from 2000 to 1996. And because it's the same characters and they don't really change appearance, it can be a little bit like, oh, where are we now? I thought we were, okay, we've just jumped again.
I agree. I didn't find it difficult to remember what year I was in, again, because of the on-screen visualization. But yeah, if you blinked and you missed it, you could be a bit like, hang on a minute, weren't you just... You're with your husband and you were not with your husband a minute ago. So there's some personal stuff that goes on for each of the characters as well. You get to see a snapshot of their lives while they were involved in this whole scenario. It's not solely focused on the drug itself, which is also, it's quite nice. It makes sure that everyone is very human within the situation, apart from maybe Richard Sackler, not the most human person on the planet. However, I do think that he would make an amazing Joker.
Maybe, wouldn't he?
So there was something very... Again, well, I guess this kind of indicates to you how they portrayed Richard Sackler as the president of the pharmaceutical company, but we both agreed that we felt like the guy that played him could have been a good Joker, which is says a lot about the head of Purdue Pharma in the early noughties.
No, it's well done to the man who played him, because he had that sort of cool, when he has that almost emotionless
he's
sense
very
of,
stoic.
I'm going to try and do the best here, but if you mess with me, then he had that sort of gleam of insanity in his eyes where he could easily carve a smile on your face, which he didn't do. But I
think my only issue, apart from the fact that it did feel like they wanted you to come out with a similar opinion to them, and by them I mean the writers, I think my only issue was I couldn't really figure out what it was that the Sackler family wanted or were trying to do. So I didn't feel like he invented the drug to help people, but I also didn't get the feeling that he invented the drug for anything else. There was a very strong sense that he wanted to be the most successful person in the family, but that, again, didn't feel developed enough that everything he did felt like it was just because he wanted to be better than anyone else. So I don't really... And he didn't seem money-minded. So I don't really know what his motivations were or why he was doing what he was doing. I mean, they were telling him that they were making billions and billions of dollars, so they were then inventing stronger versions of the tablet that would cost more money. But he didn't seem to kind of be like, yes, we're raking it in, this is amazing, let's make more money. It was... I think he just wanted to be successful, but that drive didn't quite feel strong enough for me.
I would agree, yes. I wanted to know a little bit more around him, but then it's probably a hard person to get information around what happened at that time. So I wonder if
that's true. I doubt many people really coughed up exactly what was said in a lot of those rooms.
So it'd be interesting to see what the sort of source material was and how they knew what was going on behind closed doors, or if that was a bit of sort of interpretation.
Yeah, that might have been interpretation based on the evidence that was, I guess, presented at the case against them. Interesting. It's not like I want him to be a mustache-twirling villain or to think he's some sort of saint. I just didn't feel like I understood him enough, but maybe that's just how it has to be. What do you think about the cast, then? Any massive standouts?
I think they were all fantastic. I mean, Michael Keaton.
Yeah, Michael Keaton is brilliant.
He was really excellent. And that journey as well, it's such a harrowing journey, and to see where he goes from the beginning to the end, it's just really...
I felt quite choked up in the last episode.
Yeah, it's such a sad last... I mean, it's not a happy ending.
That's all you need to say about it. Yeah. Any other standouts? I think Rosario Dawson is excellent.
Yeah, I would agree. She kind of gets a little bit lost towards the end.
She does disappear slightly in the last 3 episodes, only to return sort of conveniently in the last one. That would be my only thing there. Her story is maybe the most chunked up as well, because you do follow her from single, dating, married, divorced. And to say she's divorced is not a spoiler, because I think you find that out in the first episode, and then follow her complete journey to how she got to where she is at the beginning, at the end. But I think I really believed in her conviction for wanting to go after them.
Yeah.
She, of all the kind of law enforcement involved, I feel like she was impacted the most by the drug and the culture around it.
I would agree.
Caitlin Dever as well, Betsy, I think is brilliant.
Oh, again, well done. That's a really difficult storyline.
That can't have been easy to perform any of that from the fact that there's an LGBT struggle there as well as an addiction struggle. And in Middle America, no less, as well, in a very, very small-minded mining town, there's a lot of material for her to bite into, and she grabs it with both hands. Let's put it that way.
And such a really good supporting cast around her, like the mum and the dad, and those relationships, and then how it sort of fits into the sort of the wider picture with Michael Keaton as the Doctor.
Yeah. There's a lot of connections between characters which come kind of clear, not clean. The more you watch the show as well towards the end, it all kind of the strands all come together in certain respects.
And I'm assuming that's based on real people from the book. I've not read the book.
I think all of them are a kind of composite of people that were involved in the book, and I'm going to be really terrible now and not be able to remember it. So as I'm talking, I'm also Googling just to get the name of it. But I'm not sure that they were all directly people. I don't think there really is like a Dr. Phoenix. I think Dr. Phoenix is a mix of people that were part of the case against Purdue at the time.
Oh, okay.
So it's based on the book. So the book's called Dopesick. It's Dopesick, Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America. It's by the author Beth Macy. And there isn't even a link to tell me about the book on Wikipedia. So without doing some further research, I'm not 100% sure. But obviously there are certain players who are real and others who are, I think, composites of people that were involved in the investigation. Anything else you want to say about Dopesick?
What do I want to say about Dopesick? I think this is a very powerful program. I think it's a very important program, and I think it's one you should definitely watch. But again, if you are somebody who's living with or impacted by chronic pain, please don't make any rash decisions purely based on watching this program. So I would say go and speak to your GP, your pain specialist, or have a look at a reputable website to get some more advice if you want to learn a little bit more around chronic pain management or the use of these medicines. So by all means, please have a look at things like the British Pain Society, Pain Concern, or Opioid Aware. There's some really useful resources out there to help give some unbiased, insightful information about this type of medication use.
Brilliant. I think that's very succinct advice, that it comes from a fan and medical background at the same time.
Well, I don't want to give blanket advice to everybody. It's,
No,
everybody's
I know you always worry about accidentally giving out medical advice because, you don't know everyone's medical history.
I mean, it's such a personal thing, chronic pain as well, and everybody's experience of it is completely individual, and these medicines may work for some and not for others, so you've got to take a really individualised approach to it. And I think while this programme is really important to show a very difficult period of time, it's not a catch-all for everybody. So if you're impacted by it, please seek some specialist advice by somebody who knows your background, not a random person on a podcast.
And from Dopesick, we take you to another very real-world representation of events by having a little discussion on the legacy of The Matrix. Because it's so real and close to life. But with The Matrix Resurrections coming out in cinemas in the UK on December the 22nd, I thought now was a good time to just go over the cinematic legacy of the trilogy that is The Matrix so far, and talk about what we might be excited for with The Matrix Resurrections. Tell me about your first experience of The Matrix. What do you remember?
Oh, my first experience of it? Oh, it's a very long time ago now.
Well,
I was but a wee laddie.
Dive back in your memory and tell us about how you became involved with this franchise.
I was never personally involved in it. They never asked me. I would have loved to have been asked, though, because, that would have been nice. But as a young boy, I always remember getting very excited by the first flippy out phone. Yeah. That was very exciting. It wasn't a flippy out, it slipped down, didn't it?
Yeah. You pressed the button on the side of it and it sort of jutted out.
Did that sound? Yeah, I mean, I loved The Matrix. I've always loved The Matrix.
1999, so you would have been 10.
I was 10, yeah. I was too young to see it in the cinema.
Do you know, I feel like I was older when the first one came out, but no, I was 14. Wow.
Yeah, I had to wait for it to come out on home video.
Oh.
Or did I? I think I did see it in the cinema, actually. I think I went with my dad, and we did that thing where I pretended to be 12. Because I was quite tall for my age.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I am 12.
Yes, I am 12. Yes.
I also have one of those mobile phone devices, for I am old.
Well, I mean, it's hard to avoid the fact that the first Matrix film was an absolute revelation in cinema. I mean, it changed everything. How many films featured like stylish floor-length leather jackets and sunglasses combos after this? And not only so the sort of the invention of bullet time, and there weren't that many films that really went in as heavily on visual effects as this film did. So I think it's hard to argue with the fact that The Matrix left a massive legacy on cinema. Maybe more so than the other two. But what was it about the first one that you loved?
Everything.
Okay. Anything in particular?
Everything.
Okay.
Well, it's everything you could want from a film. It's got high sci-fi concept. We've got some like proper martial arts, flippy whippy, wire work, guns, explosions, leather coats, Keanu Reeves. I mean, it's just an all-rounder, isn't it? Spaceships.
How do you feel about the fact that it became such a cultural phenomenon, with the fact that it then went into games, it went into anime, it obviously had sequels? Do you feel like the legacy is deserving?
Yes.
I guess the first one is your favourite of the three as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think I saw the first one at the cinema. I definitely saw the second and third ones at the cinema. I think I came to the first one on DVD as one of the first DVDs I ever owned. And I remember diving down a rabbit hole, good choice of words, on bonus features and making of and Easter eggs. I owned Enter the Matrix, which I thought was a brilliant game, which obviously tied into the films.
Oh, I had that.
And it had Going Under by Evanescence in the end credits, which I thought was amazing. It really was unavoidable as a cultural phenomenon at the time, I think. But what do you think it is about it that made it catch on like that? I felt like you were going to say all the things I just said.
All the things I just said, obviously. Because it's so different, isn't it? I mean, there was nothing like it beforehand.
No.
And
completely original idea.
And I think because it tells such a complex, intertwined story that it can mean pretty much anything you want it to mean. So you're instantly connecting with it on a very personal level.
And I think this is something that people, maybe in the general audience, often underestimate, but there is a huge amount of philosophy and academia that goes on about the themes that are in The Matrix.
Well, we spoke about it in my recent research module because it was all around how to explain what is epistemology and ontology. Watch The Matrix, because it is that.
What is real and what isn't.
What is real and how do you know it's real and what is knowledge? And the first Matrix really sums that up quite nicely.
Well, I mean, there is, for all we know, we are batteries in a machine somewhere, and this isn't real. A black cat did just walk past the door twice, so that could be a glitch in the Matrix, or it could just be Ollie running around the house.
I think he's probably just bored. I mean, he's doing his patrols.
He's just doing his afternoon patrol. It's just it's so easy to just watch it and think this is a great film and not think about the things that they were doing that were completely groundbreaking. Like, I know you had never watched any of the bonus features particularly before, but I sat you down and watched how they did bullet time, and you were like, what the hell?
Well, they invented a whole new technology.
Yeah, but just the fact that they were like, how can we make this look cool? If we take a still image of like 100 different cameras circling this guy and stitch them together, then we can actually like make a sort of 3D rendered image. Brilliant idea. How did nobody have that idea before? Absolutely genius. And yes, unfortunately, it became so heavily overused after that, but it only became heavily used after that because they were trailblazers. Obviously, one of the most famous stories from the original trilogy is the fact that they wanted a character to be representative of the trans audience. I'm now not going to be able to remember the name of which one of them it was. It was Switch, wasn't it? Obviously, that makes perfect sense. Played by Belinda McClory, who was going to be male outside of the Matrix and female inside the Matrix, and the idea was which one of them was how they actually saw themselves, and that was a concept that the studio just wasn't quite ready for at the time, which I'm sure they would be now, because in terms of representation it's incredibly forward thinking. But that's just one of the many things that the Wachowskis put in there. I mean, obviously they went through their own journey to become Lana and Lily as they are now, and it's Lana who is the one that is the driving force behind this new film, What I'm interested in, given that you're such a huge fan, is how you feel about the fact that they went back and made 2 more movies. Did you feel like this should have just been the one, or when they announced that they were going to make this into a trilogy, was that something that you were excited by?
Well, there was only 10, so obviously it was.
I suppose, yeah, that's true. That's quite true. You maybe didn't have the adult thinking power to say, I'm not sure that thematically this requires 2 more films.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with his ontological exploration of this character. I feel like 1 film is enough. I was like, yeah! More Matrix!
And so how did you feel, what do you think about, I suppose maybe not fair to lump both those films in together, how do you feel about the sequels?
I thought they were alright. I think it went a little bit too far away from the original core of the story. I liked what they did, sort of building the world and going to Zion and taking on the machines in a different way. I don't know if they could have done it any other way that would have been better. I don't know.
I'm not sure that there is a way that they could have done it better either. I think because they released them both in 2003, I struggle to remember what happens in each one separately. Like, I couldn't tell you where the end point of 2 is and the beginning point of 3 is. It's one big story to me, like a part 1 and a part 2 more than anything. But I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't quite live up to the first one, isn't there?
It was never going to live up to the first one, though, because
True.
It was such a left field.
Yeah.
That to then do that again, it was an impossible task.
Yeah. Do you think that the fact that so many other films and directors copied the whole bullet time and similar themes like that to The Matrix took away from the impact of the second and third one? I don't think you can take away from the impact of the first one. I think that will always be a phenomenon. But do you feel like we'd seen so much of that style that by the time the second and third came around, it was like, oh, more of this?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you're expecting them to do something that's never been done before again.
Yeah, and how often can you do something that's never been done before?
Which is unlike... I mean, they did do some really cool stuff. So when Neo was fighting all the agents in the outside courtyard, I mean, that was a massive fight and a lot of CGI that had probably never been done before. And it was done very well.
Yeah, they did some amazing stuff in creating... so they kind of went more down a CGI route with the second and third one, didn't they? So creating all of those visual effects of the multiple Agent Smith and stuff like that is very cool and they're huge accomplishments for cinema at that period. They do look a bit dated now, though.
But they still stand the test of time.
Mm.
If you compare it to some more recent films.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got some really dodgy CGI. You think, my God, The Matrix did that better.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Lord of the Rings. That has really stood the test of time.
Yeah, true. It has.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. Awful film.
Awful. It's like Game of Thrones. It looks cheap.
It does not, you liar.
I think that although the second and the third one didn't have the same kind of visual impact as the first one, I do think that thematically there was still a lot. And I still think you can spend a lot of time unpacking a lot of what happened in the second and third one.
There you go. That's your PhD.
And so you said you owned a copy of Enter the Matrix. How much did you dive into the wider Matrix world? So stuff like the Animatrix and bits and pieces of the wider media like that?
I didn't really, to be honest with you, because I didn't really have access to all that.
Okay. I think the Animatrix ended up being... So I saw the Matrix on DVD and I thought it was awesome. And then the Animatrix came around. I was in art school at the time. I was in college where doing my multimedia BTEC. So I remember us all stopping in graphic design class to be like, like part 1 of the Animatrix is now out online, because they released some of them in shorts online, which probably took us hours to download in like not even HD. And I can remember watching I'm not going to remember the name of it now, which is terrible. I remember the first flight. It's not that one. That's the CGI animated one that comes up first. There's the 2-part sort of really straightforward anime style one, which I'm going to forget the name of, and I need to know. Second Renaissance. How could I forget? It's called the Second Renaissance. Of which part 1 and part 2 tells the story of how Earth fell to the robots. And that was the moment when the Matrix for me became like a thing that I loved, because that story was so... I think it was the representation of humanity, and it was just really grim. And you know me, I love grim. So it was I'm sure you've seen it. So the story is that we invent AI. Eventually, humanity begins to turn on robots because we feel like they have too much automation. And there's a horrible scene where they almost recreate the idea of like Tiananmen Square, where humans are grabbing at humanoid-looking robots. There's a female robot screaming as they rip the skin off her. So like she's had her clothes ripped off, so she's naked, and then they tear off the skin to show that she's a robot underneath, and they're beating her with like baseball bats, and she's doing this horrible robotic scream. And I don't know, something about that really resonated with me at the time. That was like, this is the futility of humanity, that we're that desperate to survive that we turn on our own creation. And then when it gets to the point that humanity is so desperate that because we've made the robots that they're powered by sunlight, that we nuke our own society to block out the sun in the hope that would kill off the robots, and still we end up losing. Something about that I just really love. I do love a dystopian future.
Well, I mean, it's just very representative to culture today, really, where we sort of turn on our own because they're different to what we perceive as being normal. And then you've got that idea of sort of flogging them in the streets because they're different. Get them.
Well, it goes back to the old idea that Buffy was really just an analogy for growing up, that the demons were a literal representation of the demons of being an adolescent. And I think The Matrix ended up being a wonderful analogy for just how awful humanity is. But that was the moment for me that I really got bought into it. Now, we don't know much about The Matrix Resurrections. There's been a new teaser this week which has shown some of the characters from the new film recreating shots from the first films. So certain scenes like Neo with his mouth melting being recreated by Jonathan Groff's character. There's lots of moments where this new film is apparently going to reflect things that happened in the first ones. So is history repeating itself? There's even the shot where Neo and Trinity are watching themselves with one of their stunt scenes on TV. So is it very meta? Is it repeating itself? What do we think is going on? What do you think is the next logical step for the story?
I have no idea.
No?
I mean, I couldn't even begin to fathom how you would develop that story any further.
I don't think anyone expected there to be another Matrix film. Lana Wachowski said in an interview this week that Warner Brothers has basically approached her every year and said, can we make another Matrix? 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 And there was a point where I think they were developing something Matrix related with someone not a Wachowski. And I'm pretty sure she said that was the point where she went, okay, if we're going to do this, like, we have to do this, not someone else that wasn't there when we created this.
Steve from marketing.
Not Steve from marketing. And yes, it is only Lana and not Lana and Lily. I don't know what Lily's involvement is. Lily the two of them have very much stepped back from working in film all that much these days, but clearly she felt like there was a story that she wanted to tell, and both Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss said they read it and went, well, absolutely no way am I turning this down. So clearly there is a story that the people involved with it feel is important to tell. I just don't know what it is.
I have to wait and see. Not got long to go now. A couple of days.
December the 22nd, so just over 3 weeks' time. Under 3 weeks' time. It's like 2.5 weeks' time.
We'll have to book to see it when we get back to Edinburgh.
So it comes out the day that we fly up to Edinburgh for Christmas. So
Edinburgh?
Yes, indeed. But I think it'll be hopefully a nice way to reclaim the fact that people look at the second and third one as not being as great of a product as the third one, and to claim back that narrative and really dive back into the thematical elements of the Matrix trilogy. So I'm very, very excited.
Ooh, the thematical elements of the Matrix.
Indeed, you do.
A constant search for what is reality knowledge.
Exactly. If you're excited for the Matrix, then let us know. As I said earlier in this podcast, you can find us on social media at Get Your Comic On. Final topic for discussion in this week's podcast is Season 3 of Doom Patrol, which has aired on HBO Max in the US and is now fully available. Here in the UK, it is, I believe, now streaming on Stars Play, which is available through Apple TV and other such places. I don't know how many episodes. I keep searching iTunes and I'm like, ooh, there's artwork for Season 3 there. But I don't know how many episodes have aired so far, but it is available on Stars Play in the UK. We have recently just binged the back half of the season to be able to finish it, and I would like to know what you think of it as a huge Doom Patrol fan.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Would you say your favourite season of the 3 to date?
I wouldn't say it was my favourite series of the 3 to date.
Okay.
But I did enjoy it.
I think I would say it's my favourite. Would you say season 1 is your favourite just because of the introduction and all the wackiness that we were just not used to from DC TV?
Yeah, maybe. I think that and a bit of series 2 as well.
Okay.
Like the first half of series 2.
Yep. So what were your favourite elements in this third season?
So I think by the end of it, they really are the Doom Patrol.
Doom Force!
Or Doom Force, whatever you want to call them. But I think it's taken a long time. It's taken 3 years or 3 series to get to that point. And I think they've all gone on their journey. And I think they're finally happy with who they are and that they're ready to be heroes.
Yeah, I think this season has very much been about them learning to be the characters that we know from the comics a bit more. I feel like we've gone on a 3-season origin story to bring them to where they are. And I think I applaud them for doing that because there's no immediate payoff, but there are payoffs in other respects. And I feel like we've grown to love those characters so much that, for instance, I would imagine you as someone who I think you would say Rita is your favourite character, must have absolutely adored the back half of season 3.
Yeah, because it's all about Rita.
I don't know that it's all about her, but her becoming, spoiler alert, who is sort of the de facto leader of the team now, I think is huge for her character. Given in the pilot, she wouldn't leave the house.
Yeah.
In 3 years, she's gone from someone who couldn't leave the house to a de facto superhero.
A badass superhero.
Yeah.
With a big personality.
A very big personality, yes. So, season 3 obviously brings in Michelle Gomez as Madame Rouge. Not often referred to as Madame Rouge either, which was actually a bit of a surprise. And I think a different version of her character as well, not quite who she is in the comics. So, what did you think about that? How did you find... I mean, Michelle Gomez, let's just say it now, is amazing in absolutely everything that she's in, and I love her, and she's hilarious. But how do you feel about her in this?
I think she fits in perfectly, and I really liked her journey throughout the show. And I guess she's just amazing, really.
As someone who's read the comics, how do you feel about this character not quite being as she is in the comics?
Probably quite good, because in theory she would kill Rita.
Yes, so she would have killed off your favourite character.
So that was a bit of a concern.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think what they've done with her and how it's fitted in with the wider series, it works really well.
I think it works really well as well. I spent the entire season anticipating that she would do some of the typically Madame Rouge stuff, and she didn't. So it was a surprise, but she also wasn't not Madame Rouge. It wasn't like, here's a character, we're calling her this from the comics, but she's not her. I still felt like she was her in some respects. It was just a different way to approach her, and I felt it fit in with the tone of the season. Obviously, because of COVID, this series was shot slightly differently, so we didn't have the wonderful Sir
James Bond.
Sir James Bond. To call him Roger Daltrey, that's not right, is it?
No, God, no. No.
Timothy Dalton, Roger Daltrey. How did I get to the Who? Yeah, so we didn't have.
Who knows?
We didn't have Timothy Dalton this season. So how did that dynamic shift for you?
I think it was probably a better dynamic because it's less about him and it's more about them.
Now, I've obviously read a lot less Doom Patrol comics than you have. Are the comics more about him?
So at the end of the Grant run, he is the big villain.
Mm-hmm.
So he does have a big part in it towards the end. But I think week by week, it's not massively about him.
Okay, it's interesting. Because it obviously has very much focused on him and his dynamic as the father figure. In the show, that is.
Yeah, in the comics, he's a horrible, horrible man. He's not very paternalistic at all. He's just very rude and does what he does.
I feel like this has been a very consistent season in terms of writing, and in that way it's reflected Titans. I feel like Titans really stepped up its game with its writing this season as well. Would you agree with that? Do you feel like they, maybe because of COVID and producing, as in actually physically filming and everything slightly later, it gave them more time perhaps to work on the story and it was tighter. But do you feel like did that reflect for you?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It was a very tight story.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was as is the same with season 1 and 2. It was heavily serialized, but it felt like there was a very strong, defined journey for each of the characters this season. Not all of which ended with the end of this season either. So Jane obviously didn't have a complete story. We found her in a place at the beginning of the season. We've left her in a different place, but by no means have we come to a kind of conclusion in what's going on with her at the moment. Cyborg, I felt, was a little sidelined this season.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on with him. I'm not sure what's going to happen next because he's no longer the cyborg that we love and know.
Yeah, I feel like he is... I mean, he was always the kind of rogue element because he's not a member of the Doom Patrol, is he?
No, not massively. No.
And so I think we always felt like he was a bit of a plant of a more famous character in the show. And I still don't quite know what his purpose in being there is. Although I love Joyvan Wade, he plays him incredibly well. I just feel like I'm not quite sure what that character's purpose is when we come to the end of season 3.
Yeah, he'd be more suitable as a Titan than a
he
Doomer.
would. Yeah, he could cross over very easily to Titans at this point, as he could have at any point in the last 3 years. This season obviously it aimed very high with its villains, with the Brotherhood of Evil and the Sisterhood of Dada. The Brotherhood of Evil required a lot of visual effects work and some CGI stuff going on there. So how do you feel like a show with a limited budget was able to do that?
I mean, I thought they did it very well. I mean, the monkey wasn't great.
Yeah, that was the thing that concerned me the most, was how they would do the CGI ape gorilla man, and it was very CGI, but not bad.
It was still better than Click and Drag Supergirl.
Click and Drag Supergirl that's not something we should talk about, but yes, this was better.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't amazing CGI, but it was much better than CW CGI.
Have you reached a point where you think you would like to see this show connect with some of the other DC shows? Maybe, and I don't mean like let's stick it in as part of a CW crossover event, but just in general, would you like to see that? Or are you happy that they kind of continue to be where they are as a sort of isolated world?
I think I'm happy to see them where they are. I think they've done a couple of other nice nods to be... What did they say? Something like, oh, where's the Justice League when you need them?
Yeah, they were mentioned.
So I think it would be nice just to sort of have a little bit more of those links, because they did do that in Series 1 with Gar.
Yeah, true.
Because, you know, that was the backdoor pilot of Doom Patrol in Titans. So it'd be nice if they could pull on that string a little bit more and just reinforce that they're in the same universe and they've still got that connection. I think that would be really nice. But it seems like they're not going to do that. So
no, they seem to be keeping them very, very separate, which I guess it serves its purpose. But I still think there's nice ways to be on the same Earth without being completely beholden to what's going on in each of the shows.
Yeah, because I think there's a really nice relationship between Gar and Rita that I would like to see a bit more.
Yeah, they could have explored that much more, and they haven't been able to do that.
Because that would have given him a lot more to work with as well, because that would have given him his passion for being an actor, because he got that from Rita and that sort of mother-son type relationship. But we sort of lose all that a little bit, and that's probably why... Well, but it's no secret that he's not the happiest person in the cast, is he? Because he doesn't have a lot to do, so that would be a nice way for him to do something a bit more.
Certainly would. Anything about Season 3 of Doom Patrol that you weren't particularly keen on, or was kind of a downside for you?
So, I mean, I like the Sisterhood of Dada.
Mm.
Not unfortunately. In the comics, they are the Brotherhood of Dada.
Yeah, so they did a bit of regendering there.
And they're head up by Mr. Nobody.
Oh yeah, so he wasn't back this season. I'd kind of forgotten that he was involved with the Brotherhood. So no, we didn't really see... There was no presence for him this season, was there?
No, so it would have been nice if they had a nod to him at some point.
Mm.
There was a couple of nods. I did notice that the man with the bike wheels on his back, he had a Brotherhood of Dada necklace with the eye, which is really nice.
The small details are always there, and I'm always amazed by how they keep track of everything going on in the underground with Jane as well. The sheer volume of characters and the relationships between each of those is got to be really difficult to track, and they seem to somehow do it really effortlessly. I don't want to say too much because we'll go into spoilery territory, and like I said at the beginning of this, I don't really know how much of it is available in the UK yet, so I don't want to spoil the journey for fans too much, but it is... well, do I even need to ask you whether you would recommend for people to watch it?
I probably would.
Question for you then, just to leave this on a bombshell, I would obviously recommend this to watch as well. Which have you preferred this season, Titans or Doom Patrol?
Oh, Doom Patrol.
Okay, there you go. That is incredibly high praise indeed from Martin there. As I said, Doom Patrol Season 3 is available to stream in the US on HBO Max, and in the UK it is airing as we speak on Stars Play.
Can I change my answer?
Go on.
I'm going to say Stargirl.
Oh, okay. Ooh. So Stargirl was your favourite this season?
Yeah, out of the three, I think.
Yeah. Well, I suppose Stargirl is coming onto HBO Max, but, she was a CW show this year.
Well, she started off on HBO, though, didn't she?
Well, she started off in DC Universe, but,
Well, it's the same thing.
They all came from the same place.
Yeah. They all come from a place of love.
Yes. Okay. That about wraps things up for this week. We'll be back. We were aiming to have our last show of the year out next week, so we may well be back in sort of a week's time. We'll see how the scheduling figures out. But we will be back soon with another episode as we wrap up 2021, and he said 2022 there, bringing you our lists of our favourite comics, our favourite TV shows, and our favourite films of the year. So have a think about what your favourites might be, and feel free to suggest them to us on social media. Do not forget that you can read the latest news over on our website, which is www.getyourcomiccon.co.uk. And just to repeat what I have said twice already in this podcast, but you can find us on all social media at Get Your Comic Con. You can find me at Neil Vag, and Martian is at BoyWonder1989 on Twitter and BoyWonder89 on Instagram. I always forget which one is the 1989 and which one is the 89. But you get a pleasant surprise if you look for the other one and you get it wrong, because it's not him. So until next time, stay safe, stay well. Bye!